The Nintendo Switch has been blessed with Sonic games almost every year of its life, amassing a total of 10 games, not counting Sega Collections or the Sega Ages versions of classic games. Today, we're gonna go through all of Sonic's appearances on the Nintendo Switch and rank them from peak to bleak. Sonic Mania serves as the Blue Blur's debut on the console, and at the time this came out, the Switch library was still pretty barren, so the timing couldn't have been better for a fresh platforming game. I don't think anybody expected it to be this good though. Before Mania, we hadn't had a good 2D Sonic game since, Sonic Rush? And true classic Sonic gameplay had been gone since Sonic 3K, so this revived the character in about the best possible way. And the Switch version is literally flawless. Given its sprite art and pixelated art direction, it's something Switch hardware can actually run, and there's no discernible difference between this version and the others. Oh, besides being able to play it on the go, which was so freaking cool. It's not the most unique Sonic game out there, it reuses a lot of older levels, and the plot is pretty much what you'd expect, but the gameplay perfectly replicates the classic feel with new moves like the drop dash that enhance it. And the level designs, not the themes, are entirely new, which makes them a blast to experience, learn, and master. This is one of Sonic's most polished and flawless packages of all time, so it made a killer first impression on the Switch. Peak. I hate Sonic Forces. I've said that more times than I can count, I've given 100 reasons why, and I've even tried to find the good in it, and really struggled. To sum it up, the level designs are the absolute bottom of the barrel for this entire series, lacking any creativity and mostly being automated straight lines in 3D and slow snooze fest in 2D. The story takes a different approach, which I like, but the characters are so poorly written and have some of their worst moments of all time. Now, I'll give the Switch version this though, it's just as playable as any other version of the game. There's no lag, pop-in isn't a problem, and it runs at a smooth 30 FPS. Yeah, it's definitely watered down, especially the fact that it's locked at a 720p resolution in both handheld and dock mode, but performance is seamless and I'll give it that. The funny thing is, this was one of the first games announced for the Nintendo codename NX back in mid-2016, so it's got early ties to the console. Too bad it sucks, I can't flex this much. Bleak. I didn't count Smash Ultimate as one of the 10 Sonic games because this is way more than that, but he does make an appearance and I wanted to at least mention it. This is the best Smash Bros. Game without question, and with there not being any updates to it for years now, all the characters are pretty much locked into the tiers they're currently in. RIP to my main King K. Rool, but Sonic is all the way up in the S+ column, meaning he's the cream of the crop and only worse than maybe Steve. I'm not going to put this game onto the tier list because it's the odd man out, but know that this is about as good of a representation that they can give a character in Smash. I skipped over Team Sonic Racing. I've been a Mario Kart diehard since I was a kid and saw it as another pretty lousy mascot kart racer, and I think I was right. The opening cutscene looks nice and all, but the story mode is a bunch of cutouts with dialogue boxes. Well, that's okay, I just want to make a team with all my friends and play online. Oh, it's not cross-platform. Well, we all got Switches, let's join a public room and oh, it randomizes the teams, and there's nobody online. The only way you can choose your team and use it is in a private lobby, which is way harder to set up, and good luck filling one of those to actually play. But even moving offline, winning is dependent on the performance of the two bots on your team. You can get first, but if they're lagging behind, you lose at no fault of your own. It sounded like a cool premise, but none of it works. This is pretty bleak. Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games is the only Switch-exclusive Sonic game, meaning it was designed with this hardware in mind, running better than any of these other games, 1080p in docked mode at a smooth 60 FPS. Enjoy it while you can. It isn't the most in-depth of the Mario and Sonic games, but it gives you quite a bit to do, with 21 different events that have you covered for a solid variety of sports. There's not many standouts though, and only having 3 dream events feels a bit lazy, especially when one of them is a boring race through a Sonic Forces level, but it's not that bad. They're simple to understand and easy to pick up and play, making it pretty good to casually enjoy with friends now and again, and not much else. It does have a story mode, which adds some content for sure, and the cutscenes have a little more effort than the ones in Team Sonic Racing, but text boxes still flood the screen, and the characters are at an all-time most yappy. It's a pretty good little release though, you know what you're gonna get with one of these games, it's not exceeding that, but you can have some fun for sure. At launch, people were not very high on Sonic Colors Ultimate. Outside of a slew of new bugs and longer load times, the game just didn't offer additional stuff, and it surely didn't do enough to warrant the Ultimate moniker. Now, they've since cleaned it up, and it's not a bad port by any means, but I think it more opened people's eyes to how incredibly mid this game really is. Being trapped on the Wii, people were excited to see it brought to all current-gen platforms, and graphically, it looks better than it ever has, but then you realize it's Sonic Colors, the self-proclaimed 3D Sonic game that's actually 90% 2D. Gameplay just doesn't control that well. Sonic feels really stiff and slow in these platforming moments, and the double jump and homing attack sharing a button leads to way more clunk than it has any right to. And the story just cannot make up for any of these shortcomings. It's targeted at the youngest possible audience and is almost unwatchable to anyone that passed 8th grade. The world themes are still as unique as ever, and the 3D gameplay moments are pretty high speed and fun. So back in 2021, this was the best modern Sonic game the Switch had to offer. It didn't have competition, but still. It even looked a lot better than Forces, running at 900p docked at 30 FPS, a slight visual bump that it maintains throughout. There's very few hiccups, and it's a perfectly playable version of this lackluster game, so it's going inferior tier. Go play it on Wii or in 4K on other consoles. Sonic Origins is a compilation of the Genesis classic Sonic games, including 1, 2, CD, and 3 and Knuckles, aka potentially the strongest lineup of games this series has to offer. They're definitely not new titles, but like I said for Mania, these aren't demanding in the slightest, so they're able to run on Switch in perfect form, 1080p 60 FPS. It feels good to say that. And there's no debate as to whether or not these are the definitive versions. They offer both an enhanced mode with widescreen and some quality of life improvements, and a classic version for all the purists out there. In addition, you get Amy and Knuckles as playable characters, a bunch of Game Gear games, and these beautiful new cutscenes that better add context to all the stories, which I love. It's truly a love letter both to this series and its fans. And at that $30 price point, it's a tempting option for newer Sonic fans to experience Sonic's backlog without the headaches that come with both tracking down and actually playing those base versions. I know it's not an original game, but it's a peak Sonic release on the console. Sonic Frontiers is the most modern looking and feeling Sonic game, and the fact that they got it running on this glorified tablet is a sight to behold, and once that charm wears off, it doesn't look so hot. It pulls about all the tricks it can to keep itself running at an even 30 FPS, with a base resolution of 720p that bounces all over the place, lower resolution textures, and worst of all, a nearly insufferable amount of poppin'. Anytime you're running around this open world, things are popping in and out of existence in a flash. Flowers, platforms, grass, rails, it don't matter. It's being as efficient with resources as it possibly can be, and while I respect it, it makes a visually stunning game pretty damn ugly. If you can ignore the graphics though, it's a very functional version of the game. You got no bells and whistles, but it is Sonic Frontiers running on the Switch, that's not a lie. And playing it in handheld mode, you can forgive a lot of its shortcomings. On a TV though, just stop. The main problem here is, I'm not the biggest fan of the game itself. Open worlds aren't my cup of tea, but the story is pretty top tier, and for what the gameplay tries to do, it crushes it. It's great they made this happen for Switch owners, but the game loses a lot of its magic without the world being fully intact, so I gotta go inferior tier. And I know that's below Mario and Sonic, this game is way better, don't get me wrong, but the Switch release is very flawed, and the tier list has spoken. Sonic Superstars has one of the better Switch releases we've seen, offering up 60 FPS for the only time in a non-pixelated game, which is definitely noteworthy. It does come at a cost though, 720p no matter what, and you know, that's a fair trade-off to me, and what's impressive is that even in co-op with 4 players, the same is true, and that's a major W for the game. Now, multiplayer doesn't work the best in the game itself, not having split screen, and the camera only focusing on one player leaves others in the dust way too often, but as a single player experience, it's awesome. Fun levels, a fresh modern art style, tough bosses, decent story elements, it's got basically everything you'd want. And while it's no Sonic Mania, it's a really positive step for the series, and a damn good Switch game, so Sonic X Shadow Generations might be my favorite Sonic game from the last decade. Not only does it port Sonic Generations, the game with, in my opinion, the highest quality selection of levels in the series, but it adds another smaller game with levels that are arguably just as good, with a more heartfelt and well-written story. And on the Switch, you're getting very solid performance, 1080p in the Sonic Generations half, and 720p in Shadows, both of which chill around 30 FPS, which isn't the most ideal, but it's more than doable, and still looks great compared to Frontiers, Forces, and even Colors. But the gameplay here is just so freaking good. It's smooth as butter and is Boost Sonic at his absolute finest. Zipping through these courses, going down memory lane with all the returning themes, and trying to beat your best times is genuinely a blast. It's my favorite Sonic game to play in my spare time, and the handheld version makes that even easier to do. An easy peak. Releasing just this year, Sonic Racing Crossworlds gives this struggling hardware one of its last timed exclusives over the Switch too. For some reason, there's no version on the more powerful hardware, so alright. I've been playing this one for a bit now, and I adore it. After Team Sonic Racing, it felt like they had no idea what they were doing, and then 5 years later, we got one of the best kart racers I've ever played. Seriously, it's that good. I talked about it more extensively in another video where I compared it to Mario Kart World, so check that out in the end screen, but the gameplay mechanics are truly some of the best out there, the track designs are fire, the new characters are freaking sick, and online races make it one of the greatest multiplayer games to play in 2025 and beyond. Now, I'll be honest, I don't own this one on the Switch. I know, but after looking at some gameplay and hearing the public reception, it seems to be a solid experience. It runs at a full 1080p when docked at 30 FPS, which it keeps up somewhat consistently throughout a race. Even when it has to load in an entirely different track for lap 2, there isn't any noticeable jumpiness or lag, which is quite impressive, honestly. Yes, the textures are worse, and for a more technical racing game, that lower frame rate is particularly lousy, but if you can adjust to it, it's perfectly viable. And since it's cross-platform, you can play this with all your friends no matter which version they have, and that's another huge pull factor to a game like this over Mario Kart. And yes, that makes it a very solid release. And there you have it. And if you want to hear my full thoughts on Sonic Racing Crossworlds, you can check out the video here. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.